how I met my husband, and he was already a home winemaker when I met him. It was a hobby for him in the beginning. But yeah, I worked for Norman Lear and Bud Yorkin in television production, and at the time I went to work there, they had 6 television series on the air, All in the Family, Maude, Sanford and Son, Good Times, The Jeffersons, and One Day at a Time. And then after the first 6 months, it went from 6 to 11. At the time, I actually left the company a while later, 8 years later. I was project manager from a business affairs standpoint for One Day at a Time, The Facts of Life, and Different Strokes were my 3 series. I hired Gary Coleman to work on Different Strokes. Yeah, I have. Yeah, so I go back a ways.
Well, it was groundbreaking. I mean,
we were masters of the universe at the time. We were the cutting edge. We were it, which made it a whole lot of fun to work there. And my husband, Charlie, was head of the team of lawyers that represented Norman and Bud in the production of all of these series. They generated all of the contracts to hire the actors, writers, producers, and directors on all of those series. And you think 11 television series and roughly 30 people per series, it gets to be a lot of contracts. And what I did as business affairs was negotiate the deals to hire the people that worked on this series and sort of manage the budget, and then would communicate the deal to the lawyers. And that's how we met.
So before you met Charlie,
yes,
were you a big wine drinker? Were you into wine?
Well, when I was in college, you drank Mateus Rosé because it had that fun-shaped bottle that everybody then put different colored candles in, so you'd have all the different colored drips on it.
Now you're going back.
I know. I am back. That is where I come from. And also Lancers because it had the fun brown bottle. But that was pretty much it. So sweet and pink. After Charlie and I were together, he was responsible really for my education in more sophisticated wine drinking. Having said that, I went through the profile that everybody on the planet goes through. I went from sweet white to dry white to light red to darker red and then to serious red, and then for a while wouldn't go back to white. And then as you can tell, a true wine drinker appreciates all the different colors for all the different things that they go with. And so you have to move on from being only red or only white. There's, as I like to say, there's life after Cabernet Sauvignon. There is life after Chardonnay. There's a whole broad spectrum of wines to drink and enjoy in many, many different ways. And if you get locked into one, it doesn't mean that you know what you're doing. To me, it means that you've cut yourself off from 98% of what's possible, and isn't that sad? The most important thing is to not be intimidated. Oftentimes I work in the tasting room and people will say to me, well, how do I learn more about wine? And I said the smartest thing to do is try a bunch of different things until you find a couple that you really like, that really appeal to you. And then you take that empty bottle to the local wine shop guy and say, I like this. What would you recommend for me to try that is somewhat different but still in the same vein? So, because I'm learning, I'm not ready to jump off the deep end yet. But if you can get me something that's similar to this but slightly different, I would love that. And then you find out whether that guy is going to recommend something that's $100 more than you paid, and then you say, well, no, I have to go find a different shop. But then you find the guy who has your thinking and you guys share a perspective, and that's how you learn, because then you take new bottles each time and say, I had this at a restaurant last night and I really enjoyed it. Or nowadays, of course, you can just take a picture of the label with your phone and you don't have to take the empty bottle in. But the point being that you show that to the guy and let him introduce you to something that will broaden your horizon. And it's all about broadening your horizons. And what I always say in the tasting room is it's a beverage, not a religion. There's no sin here, and there's no perfection either. It's something to be enjoyed with the rest of life. It pops off the shelf in the wine shop, and people cannot bring themselves to throw the bottle away. And I guess I should probably talk about what the bottle is. It is a bottle of Merlot that the major surface of the bottle is covered in two handprints, which in this case now is our son Lucas, because he's the winemaker now. And so he puts both of his hands in paint and grabs each and every bottle. So no two are exactly alike. And I think there is a video on YouTube of him actually doing it, so you can actually watch it happening.
That's cool.
But yeah, it is, and we started doing that in 1991 was the first vintage, and we've been doing it ever since. And when we first started as a winery, we were known primarily for Zinfandel, but the handprint Merlot just kind of took over, and it is now our flagship wine, and it's an iconic bottle, and people tend to remember it, and it's pretty well represented across the country. We're in about 20 different states. We make many different reds. And one of the things that Charlie started when we first started making wine was that because it had begun as a hobby for him, his interest was always in trying to learn to do something new and different every harvest. So he would either try to do a new grape, something he hadn't made before, or a new way of treating something he had made before. Our son, who has taken over as head winemaker beginning with the harvest of 2014, has continued that tradition, for lack of a better term. And so, for example, the white wine that we're making now called Verdelho is a Portuguese grape. In 2017, last year's harvest, was the first year we made it, and it was his experiment for the year. In Portugal, where the grape arises, it is used primarily for making Madeira. But we made a straight-up white wine with it, and it turns out, who knew, it has an incredibly floral, fragrant, kind of tropical nose and a clean, crisp finish. And so it's like lemonade for grown-ups. It's totally unpretentious. It's a porch pounder. It's been very successful for us this past summer, and we actually just 2 weeks ago, middle of August, got the fruit for 2018, so we're excited about that. I would say that our overall winemaking style tends to trend toward the old world. We believe in structure. We believe in building a wine that will age. We believe in acidity so that wine will taste good with food. We do not believe in high pH. We try to stay away from real high alcohols. We do not believe in residual sugar unless it's a dessert wine. And even then, we balance it with acid so it's clean finishing. It isn't syrupy or cloying. So aside from the handprint Merlot, we also make a Cabernet Franc that is incredible. There are very few domestic Cabernet Francs that are 100% Cabernet Franc. We only make a couple hundred cases of it because it's a single vineyard, and they're very old vines, so we don't get very much tonnage off it, but the fruit we get is amazing and it's delicious. We make several blends. One is called Roller Coaster. It primarily shows up in wine shops and on restaurants' menus or wine lists as predominantly a by the glass red. It's a blend of many different grapes, all of which we have made. We didn't buy bulk, and we're not blending it and flipping it. A lot of it's happening now. All of the elements of the wine we have